It's Sunday here at Flashpoint 2 in London, and although it may be the day of rest, there is no rest for our teams in this fiery feud of competition. The Book of Genesis wrote that after the Great Floods, a united human race came together to build a tower tall enough to reach the heavens. That was until God struck down, confounded their speech, and scattered the people across the globe. Much like our group in the Tower of Babel, our players from across the lands will be taking to the stage today to try and reach the new heights of the playoffs. But unfortunately, for one of our teams, it will mean their skulls in the sands of elimination, out of the running for the title and a shot at that $1 million prize pool. My name is Freya, your desk host for the duration of the day. And of course, joining me for this Sunday service of CS, the wonderful Thorin and Hawker. And an absolute pleasure to have you up here, Hawker. It's your first time up here on the analysis desk for Flashpoint 2.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks. It's a very big desk. I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm already a small person, so the desk is pretty big for my standards. But hey, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, listen, I know you're a Flashpoint virgin, but we'll take it easy, okay? We'll ease you into this, all right?
I appreciate that, Thorin.
That was a bit fucking over the top, wasn't it? That whole thing. It just kept going and going.
Oh yeah, no, we've got to do it.
Okay.
The Tower of Babel, we have a name for these groups. We've got to live up to it,
Right.
Duncan. Of course we have to. And of course, if you guys aren't familiar with the format for this competition, we're going to take a quick look at our graphic to give you guys a recap of exactly what is happening. Of course, this is the group stage of competition that we are in now. Of course, Group C, that Tower of Babel. And it's, of course, all GSL best of 3 double elimination. And Hawker, everybody is vying for that spot at the playoffs because $1 million prize money, that's no small chunk of change for our teams.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of teams say that they are really building up to this event. I think it was even Fnatic who was saying, we're not really using all our strats in other tournaments. They're literally saving stuff for this event. It clearly is the big event for them, the one they've been waiting for. I'm sure all these teams are in that same boat.
Didn't look like they were using all their strats in the Mad Lions game, to be fair. Maybe they've gone too far with this saving thing. That's usually James's bag, you know.
Well, let's recap yesterday, because it was a bit of a day of RIP for my predictions, at least. Of course, we can take a look at exactly what was happening yesterday. I know that Christine was very happy with what happened yesterday. In the end, she bet on Dig. I don't think hardly anybody else bet on Dig. I was all on that contact train, but now they're out of the competition.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because of the Dntel announcements, like players we don't know, I mean, the Heath player literally had no record on the usual stats sites. People didn't have high expectations. I think a lot of people thought they're probably the worst team in the group. Contact was actually supposed to be a team that had potential dark horse status. They were maybe going to bring together these young talents, FPL fighters. And aside from basically the one Sphinx game where he dropped the 40 kills, I don't think we saw that much out of the team at this tournament.
No, let's recap what we can see on our screens as well. Obviously, Fnatic versus Mad Lions, which Hawker, that went literally the full distance in overtime to be sealing out the third and final map of the series. And as you can see, it means so much to these guys from Mad Lions. Of course, Hooksy, not a former Flashpoint 1 winner in that ride, but of course, Mad Lions were the ones lifting the trophy at the previous tournament. So they're looking in pretty good shape, managing to take down Fnatic.
Yeah, they're looking like a real good dark horse for this tournament. I think they have had a little bit of time just to get together with this roster. Refresh playing more of a lurk role seems to be working out for them. He was the big question mark for me, is how is Refresh going to fit back into that roster? He was doing a great job. As for Contact, I just think some of their individuals were shaky here. Like, I want to see more out of Esperanto. I feel like he's got to be a big star for this team, and we just never really saw that.
No, we didn't, indeed. And it's interesting as well, when I spoke to Neil before coming into this, he was saying this is the easiest group, no fear at all, it's going to be an absolute easy win. Fnatic will be regretting that they picked them for this group. No regrets from the Fnatic side for putting them in here, obviously.
No, absolutely not. I mean, unfortunately as well, this is another Flashpoint tournament where Contact has come in with some of the hype and people wanted to believe in the storyline, and it's completely fizzled out in the group stage itself. And the difference is, the first time around, they had to have stand-ins, they had to have the coach eventually play in the game. Oh, that was actually Envy I'm thinking of there. They had to have the person who later was their coach play. Now, in theory, yes, Spinks is a newer player. They just added Rig on, but like the breadth of talent, and they've had months and months to get it together. So really very underwhelming performance by Contact.
Yeah, and just speaking of Dignitas Vi as well, of course, Hauser, we didn't get to see him at the previous Flashpoint 1, of course, with those visa issues coming into it. But yesterday, he looked pretty impressive.
He did. I think there was the one map on Nuke where he was really looking good. Then on some of the other ones, a little bit quieter still than I would like, perhaps. I think in general, I want the AWPer to be very active, right? I want him to always be taking fights, always getting involved in rounds. Sometimes Horsework went a bit missing in that aspect. He does seem like a bit of a confidence player at times, which scares me for as the tournament goes on. It's going to be hard to build up confidence against some of those better teams, but at least we're starting to see him find his feet a little more, even if it is against some of the weaker opposition.
Well, speaking of the tournament progressing, of course, today we're going to be delving into Group C, the Tower of Babel. And with that, the reason that we gave them that name was, of course, the international rosters coming together. So many players from so many different corners of the globe speaking so many different languages. And I think we need to talk about the rise of international rosters and when they first came onto the scene, because kind of prior to 2015, it wasn't necessarily commonplace to be seeing those sort of players coming together from different countries.
Yeah, and funnily enough, a lot of people forget this. They'll think of FaZe Clan, they'll think of this approach, but the two real teams that pioneered this was Mouse Sports, because there just weren't good enough good players in the German scene, and they wanted their boy Chris J to always be in the team. And then you had people like Nico come along. And then the other team, obviously, was the team that became G2, but it was originally called G2, and that was basically because Makalele got kicked out of NIP. You had Scream, who couldn't get into those big French teams. And then actually, people don't know, they were originally potentially going to have Hiko and Skadoodle. So if you notice what I'm saying here, you either have to have a country that just doesn't have enough top-tier players, so it's worth taking someone from elsewhere, or you have huge names with big market value who you're just going to try and force into a squad and then just hope you can create success out of it.
Yeah, and I know it was pretty hype when KiNK were first kind of coming onto the scene here. Do you kind of remember any particular moments from that, Hawker?
I mean, that Rain ace that was showed earlier was great. I think this is one of the teams where we really got to see what Rain is made of, and just in general, kind of the reliable player he's become on these international squads, where it never feels like he's the problem for the team. It always feels like they're chopping and changing players around him. Obviously, getting to see Nico on a better team is always a nice thing as well.
There was a classic story where when they were KingWin, when they announced the first lineup, which was a much, much worse lineup, Pasha famously said on stream, like, KingWin, no chance, my friend, no chance. And then he played them a couple of months later at Face It Stage 2 in Valencia. Different team, to be fair. They had Dennis in the lineup then.
Yeah.
And they did literally, Virtus.pro, get 16-0'd on their favourite map of Cash. So, unsurprisingly, that sort of came back to bite him a little bit. And even though it wasn't quite the context of when he made it, it made for a hilarious moment.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the rise of those international squads as well, but potentially the fall coming into this competition. Of course, later today we'll be seeing C9 taking on OG. One of these teams is definitely out of the competition. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on, the progression of international rosters and what we're seeing from them at the moment, because obviously FaZe as well, a little bit inconsistent, managing to claim a title at IEM New York, but now, Nico's left the team as well. So a few inconsistencies coming out of these squads.
For me, FaZe shows the strength and the flaw of the international roster, because everyone, even up to the last lineup with Nico, you look at the names on paper and you're like, this should be a team that can win tournaments, at least always an elite squad, because look at the amazing star players. That's the whole gimmick of what they've done with the team. But the point is that team lacked a really great in-game leader. So with these other two teams, Cloud9, OG, for me, that's the element that can make the international lineup work, is you need a very strong in-game leader, because he's going to have to make up for maybe lack of communication, obviously no shared history of playing together. Team play aspects are going to be a little bit trickier. So if you have a Carrigan, an Alex, and Alexi B, maybe then you can make it work. I feel like that's it. You need the driver to sort of make the car work in that sense.
Yeah, and touching upon the rosters that we're going to be seeing here, and of course on your screen as well, as Cloud9, OG, one of these will definitely be going out. Of course, we saw Contact going out yesterday, another international roster as well. And Hawker, I think it is safe to say that it's a bit of a surprise, definitely to see OG in this third bracket, particularly because it was Gen.G in their first matchup here.
Yeah, for sure. We were expecting that to be one of the most one-sided games in favor of OG. It ended up almost going the other way entirely. I think in general for these international rosters as well, there's definitely a talking point as to how long do you give the team before you can really get to see them hit the level you expect. Because for OG, it's taken them so long to even get to this point. It's really taken them the whole year to finally ramp up to the level we were kind of expecting out of this roster to begin with. And that's going to come when you have players that maybe haven't fit in their own scenes for whatever reason. Maybe there's going to be personality clashes. There's just a lot more you have to do when it comes to international rosters to get that sort of foundation under your feet. Whereas for teams like Big, for example, they can instantly just come in, they can have that sort of common ground, which has helped them get all those protocols in place and be able to be a really structured and solid team.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something that we kind of haven't really picked up is that communication aspect of it as well. Obviously, that was more of a talking point back in 2015. Obviously, normally, you'd be speaking the native language of your country when you're in a team. But, it's a big deal to be moving on to a squad where you're having to be communicating in English, because sometimes in those crucial moments, you could call something in your own language. Your players might, be a little bit confused of what's going on. So that was something we saw hugely developing at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another aspect people don't realise. Even though if they were to have a conversation in English, they all have perfectly fluent English and they understand the basic words. The point is, in the moment, trying to translate an idea very quickly from your mind and give basically a shorthand to your teammate. You're not going to explain everything you're saying. You're going to say a couple of things. Well, one thing that's actually taken for granted by a lot of fans is almost every regional scene has different call-out names even. So it could take you a couple of months to even get up to speed on all 7 maps as to what the call-outs are. Is it yard? That's what they call the outside area on Nuke. In Sweden, we just call it outer in English. There's a million names everywhere, different player names attached to spots.
Yeah, well, with that, I think it is time to be getting our teeth into some delicious Counter-Strike action today. Of course, this first matchup will be determining who is going straight to the playoffs. Will it be Gen.G or will it be Virtus.pro? We'll be back after this.
After the break.
Gen.G
against Virtus.pro.
Virtus.pro.
You're watching
Flashpoint.